Take this adherent for this meeting of South Lanarkshire Council being held on the 19th of February 2025. We have Councillors Allison, Anderson, Barker, Bradley, Brogan, Brown, Councillor Archie Buchanan, Councillor Matthew Buchanan, Councillor Kalikis, Councillor Carmichael, Councillor Chalmers, Councillor Clark, Councillor Convery. I have apologies from the Provost. I'm just going to check if we've got Councillor Corbett. We do have Councillor Corbett. We have Councillor Cowan, Councillor Cowie, Councillor Devlin. I'll just check if we've got Councillor Dewar. Oh, you're here. Right, thank you. We have Councillor Donnelly. I'll check if we've got Councillor Equi. We do have Councillor Equi. We have Councillor Fagan, Councillor Faulkner, Councillor Ferguson Miller, Councillor Frame, Councillor Fulton, Councillor Gowland, Councillor Gray, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Handybode, Councillor Horn, Councillor Horsham, Councillor Hose, Councillor Johnson-Dempsey, Councillor Keat, Councillor Kerr, Councillor Lambie, Councillor Lennon, Councillor Lockhart, Councillor Logan, Councillor Loudon, Councillor Hugh MacDonald, Councillor Marsh, Councillor McCallan, Councillor McClymont, Councillor McCreary, Councillor Leslie MacDonald, Councillor McDougall, Councillor McGeever, Councillor McLachlan, Councillor Nelson, Councillor Nugent, Councillor Ray, Councillor Razak, Councillor Robb, Councillor Ross, Councillor Scott, Councillor Shearer. We have the Deputy Provost. We have Councillor Toner, Councillor Walker, Councillor Watson, and we have Councillor Williams. I'll just check. We don't seem to have Councillor Williams. And with that, I'll hand back to the Deputy Provost.
Thanks for that, Susan. Thank you. Item 1, any declarations of interest? Councillor Nelson, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Provost. Can I register an interest, please, at agenda item number 7? I am a Board of Trustee member for Who Dares Cares.
Okay. And Councillor Keats, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Provost. On agenda item number 7, I am a trustee of the Hamilton Churches Drop-In Centre. Okay,
thank you. Any other declarations of interest? Maureen Devlin, Councillor Devlin.
Thanks, Deputy Provost. I have to declare an interest again in 7 because I'm involved as a volunteer with the hub in Bothwell Future. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much there. I think that's us there. We're on to item 2, minutes of previous meeting, pages 5 to 22. Can I take that as a correct record? Oh, sorry, Councillor Logan, go ahead, Katie.
Thanks, Deputy Provost. It was just by way of a quick update on the notice of motion item 9, which we had at the previous meeting on the voluntary sector and disclosure Scotland fees that Councillor Brown and Councillor McGeever brought. Back at that time, we were waiting for a consultation report to be published by Disclosure Scotland on what should be done with PGB fees for the Scottish Government to then make a decision. And I'm pleased to say since then, the Scottish Government have decided to retain the current fee waiver, which is really great news. It's been welcomed by the voluntary sector. Do of course still have the same concerns about the impacts of ENIC's national insurance contributions, as I had mentioned previously, but really pleased to see there's been some movement in that. And thanks again to Councillor Brown and McGeever for bringing it to Council.
Okay, thanks for that, Katie. We move on to the next item now. It's item 3, minutes of risk and audit scrutiny committee, pages 23 to 34. And it's just an item for noting. Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. So, Councillor Robb, go ahead there.
Thanks very much. Absolutely fine with the minutes. I just wanted to draw to attention the costs of the storm damage over the years and the insurance claims. I think it was 0.8 million these are only going to happen more in the future with climate change, and just urging the Council to be ready for not just minimising our emissions to stop locking in future climate change, but to start thinking seriously about adaptation to climate change. We should be starting to map, explore and resource how we're adapting our buildings and so on to these, to minimise these insurance losses in the future.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rob. We'll certainly note those comments there. Thank you. Right, can we ask members just if they could note the minutes there? Agreed, thank you. Right, item 4, recommendation referred by Executive Committee, Housing Revenue and Capital Account Budget 2025-2026. Copy of paper, I believe, has been circulated just now. And I would like to ask Provost, Stephen Gibson, maybe to make a comment on that, speak to that item, please.
Thanks, Deputy Provost. Yep, the purpose of this report is to seek approval for the recommendations which were initially approved by the Housing and Technical Resource Committee when they met on the 22nd of January and were endorsed by the Executive Committee on the 12th of February. And the report summarises the revenue assumptions for HRA in 2025-26 and seeks approval for the rent increase and capital programme for the year commencing the 1st of April. As always, the background's in section 3. It confirms that we consider the HRA over a 30-year business plan. It talks about the proposed rent increase, and for 25-26 we're proposing a rent increase of 6.5% with a further 6.5% increase in 26-27. And although this is still in line with the multi-year agreement that's been reached with tenants, it's important to note that we still will be engaging with tenants before the rent increase next year, and we'll be seeking approval as normal from elected members. As mentioned in the report, it seeks approval for a capital programme of £85.948 million, and the priorities for that are set out in the report. And as you see, it's about maintaining and improving our existing stock. It's about meeting national standards, and it's about continuing our new build programme. And in terms of affordable housing, the report talks about the fact that there is a 4% increase in the national programme. We'll see an increase in South Lanarkshire. We just don't know how that's going to filter through, so we're still waiting for clarification on how that will come through to us. The report talks about the consultation process we've gone through, and as always, we work closely with the Budget Scrutiny Group and the Tenant Participation Coordination Group, and again, we'd like to thank them for their involvement and input throughout that process. The employee implications, financial implications and climate change implications were all highlighted at both previous meetings. So if we could take you to the recommendations, it comes with 2 recommendations. The first is for a proposed rent increase of 6.5% should be applied for 25-26 with a further 6.5% increase in 26-27, which is subject to annual review and customer engagement. And secondly, that the proposed increase of 6.5% should allow a proposed capital programme of £85.948 million next year. Thanks very much. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Before we ask approval, I think we've got people wanting to come in. Andrea Curran, is that correct? It's the microphone on. Just repeat that. Sorry, Andrea, I'll go ahead. Do you wish to speak?
Thanks very much, Deputy Provost. So I've already welcomed this at Housing Committee and at Executive, but I've been encouraged to welcome it again, so I'm going for a hat-trick. Just want to welcome this report and obviously welcome the increase in the revenue spend for next year. And the 6.5% rent increase, I understand, still keeps us very near the bottom of the table for social housing rents, so delighted about that as well. So thanks very much to all the housing officers for their hard work. Thank you.
Kirsten Robb wishes to speak on your, Kirsten.
Thank you. It's a bit related to my previous point as well. Thinking about all the work of the storms and the age of our housing stock and dampness and so on, I've been reflecting on what we could do to help that happen. Obviously, I'm very happy with these recommendations. I've also been contacted by factored property constituents talking about the cost of the investment required. So I was wondering if we could consider adding two things to the recommendations, or if officers could consider these. The first is to see if there's any underspend in the capital programme this year, if those could be wired into more work getting done this year on external fabric, insulation and environmental works, improvements and so on around these, just to ask if members would be supportive of getting more work done in these if there is underspend in the capital programme budgets. That's the first one. And the second one is considering the possibly higher levels of investment required by homeowners, if we could consider giving them longer to pay back, which might make them more likely to accept some of these investments that are required, because at the moment sometimes it's hard for people to pay over the shorter timescale. Would members accept looking into getting up to 10 years payback period, say for some of these larger amounts of investments required to bring up the housing stock, so that our tenants and factored properties can benefit?
Thanks very much for the comments. I'd like to pass it on. Maybe Stephen could answer or at least make a comment there. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks very much, Deputy Provost. Thanks, Councillor Robb. Yeah, look, thanks for the question. Now, obviously, acknowledging everything you've said, we've set a capital programme of £85.948 million for next year, and a large part of that will be spent on the housing investment programme. The intention next year will be the same as the intention this year, and that's to spend 100% of the housing investment programme. This year, we get very, very close to it. We are almost 100%. The intention next year will do exactly the same. However, if there are opportunities, if something within the programme slows down, we can give priority to external wall insulation if that's the right thing to do at the time. So it's something that we would always consider to manage the programme as it's going through.
Thank you. And then there was the other bit, Chair, the other part of the question.
Okay, I think I could ask Jackie Taylor maybe to respond to that, please.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Just to reiterate, see, as part of this budget, this paper today is about the housing revenue account budget. The way that we are able to offer repayment plans to tenants wouldn't, to owner-occupiers wouldn't fall as part of this budget paper, but I'd be happy to have a chat outside this meeting on what options are available to owner-occupiers and how they are able to repay over a period of time, if that helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you there. Thanks for the comments. Right, if we're agreed there, I think we could move on then. Are we all agreed? Agreed. Right, thank you. Item number 5, family leave for elected members, and it's on pages 35 and 36. And I don't know if Ian's got to speak to this.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Morning, members. The purpose of the report is to advise of arrangements in respect of family leave for Councillor Hamilton. As noted in the report, Councillor intends to take maternity leave. Arrangements are required to put in place on a temporary basis to fill certain places she holds until her anticipated return around the middle of January. So asking Council to approve the recommendations set out in the report, noting this, that on a temporary basis until her return, the places are filled as deemed necessary by a member of the Labour group. That Councillor Keat takes on the Chair of Education Resources Committee on a temporary basis. That Councillor Kerr fill the position of Deputy Chair on a temporary basis. Authority is delegated to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Labour group's business manager to finalise those temporary memberships. We'll circulate a note once that is done, and to note that some of the dates might change. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, there. Thanks for that there. John Ross, you want to speak there, John, on that?
Very much, Deputy Provost. It's not really a question, it's more a comment. I'd just like to offer on behalf of the SNP group our warmest congratulations to Lindsay for the fantastic news. We hope everything goes well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. I think the whole council will pass this on to Lindsay. Wish her well, and probably going quick, and we'll see you before you know it. Thank you. Okay. Right. So we agreed then? Yes. Agreed. Right, thank you. Thank you. Right. We'll move on to item number 6, and I believe a motion's been passed here. Have you got the paperwork's been passed around? Yes. Amendment, is that correct? Yeah. Has been, yeah. If you go to Councillor McGeever, would you like to speak in this motion, Mark?
Thank you, Deputy Provost. It's with some sadness that I introduced this motion, actually. Twitter was a phenomenal tool for freedom of expression, as well as the dissemination of news and facts and of ideas. And it was particularly important for that, for people and journalists in places of the world where they weren't otherwise able to do so, where it was restricted, censored, and they were subject to coercion and subjugation. It was never perfect, but it served a greater good, and sadly now as X, that can't really be said to be the case anymore. Organisations, both at home and abroad, are increasingly reviewing their use of X in light of the present reality. They have to weigh the need and the value of getting their messages across against the fact that doing so will likely mean their messages appear alongside totally unregulated content, which sadly increasingly includes hateful, extremist and even criminal content. When a council advertises or comments in a newspaper, we may not like its editorial position, we don't like the type of coverage it puts out, but we nevertheless know that it is a responsible publication in terms of there is an editor who is responsible for everything that appears therein, and that editor being subject to a code of conduct and even the law itself. And that's not so with Twitter, with X. Worse, there seems to be no effort at all on its part to restrict the publication of blatantly extremist and hateful content, whether it's images, video or textual messages. Yet we also have to face up to the reality that as it stands, this platform is unmatched as a means of reaching people with important information. And that's why this motion is written as it is. It seeks to balance those two facts in a principled way. And I'd like to thank both Ian and Tom for their advice in getting it to that end. When vital local services are hit by sudden events like the recent storms, and people need to know that something will impact them, then this council would be justified in continuing to use Twitter until we are able to move away from it fully. However, we have to balance that with the fact that it can't just be business as usual. We do have 59,000 followers, to give some context to its importance, and that sadly at the moment is a reach that can't fully be matched anywhere else. It remains a vital means of communicating information, especially in urgent situations. But the changed nature of the platform, the fact that our posts may appear alongside such hateful content, does mean that we should reconsider and restrict our use of it in some way, that we should move away from it in time. This motion would, if passed, make clear that we seek to end the use of the platform as soon as practicable, as soon, basically, as a viable alternative emerges. And in the meantime, we'd continue to use it in that sensible way. Now, I want to make very clear, and I hope the motion does so, that this is not about freedom of speech or expression, which I, and I'm sure all colleagues, hold in the highest of importance. And I hope, ultimately, that people will recognise that it's about how any responsible organisation should choose to communicate. And I hope that colleagues will consider that this is a principled and pragmatic stance and support the motion. And I know that we do have an amendment coming in from Councillors Johnson, Dempsey and Loudon. It does strike me as a constructive one in keeping with the approach of the motion. And I'd just like to ask Tom in particular if including it, particularly item A, using it as begin rather than progress or explore, if that would cause any issues from a strategic communications standpoint. But certainly I welcome what's been put forward. So thank you, Deputy Provost.
I believe, right, thank you there. I believe that Councillor Robert Brown is going to second that. Is that correct, Robert? You want to say a few words there?
In actual fact, it's going to be seconded by Councillor Norman Ray, who knows more about these things than I do.
Okay, Councillor Norman Ray.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I'm happy to second this motion. The rise of hate and extremism is a phenomenon apparent around the world, manifested in public discourse, politics and violence. This is often visible on social media platforms, which can be used to disseminate such harmful ideas, and it could be argued to have played a significant role in their rise. Most such platforms have made some attempts to limit this, though there have been debates over how effective or determined they have been. What was Twitter, now X, was one of these. This has now changed. X has, it would seem, largely abandoned moderation of content, allowing a free-for-all for those who seek to promote their extreme views and attract others to their causes. But more than that, it would appear that the algorithms adopted by X are actually acting to promote posts of this nature. The consequence has been a dramatic decline in the standard of discourse and reliability of information on the platform. It has become a hive of misinformation, hate and extreme ideologies. This council is not part of that. However, both by council posts potentially appearing with those of an extreme nature and the implicit endorsement of the platform as a source for reliable information, the danger is that we unintentionally help to further the promotion of hate. It could be said that this is a much bigger issue that South Lanarkshire Council cannot or should not attempt to tackle, and it is true that it is a matter of global relevance that even national governments may struggle to contend with. Nevertheless, we can act as others have already. Collectively, as more organisations and individuals move away from using X, the exposure of our residents to harmful content can be reduced. And reviewing the Council's social media use allows for consideration of the potential risks and for these to be avoided where possible. The Council can't solve this problem alone, but we can and should act where we have the opportunity. The rise of extreme ideologies and their political expression is global and extends far beyond a single social media platform. But today we can show that this Council will not stand aside when we have the chance to do something about it. I urge you to support the motion.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I'd now like to, sorry, I believe I've got an amendment here. Councillor Jones, would you like to speak to your amendment, please?
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I used to be a big fan of Twitter. It always had problems, but they were actively managed, and efforts were made to curtail breaches of their terms of service. Unfortunately, since it was purchased, the site has become filled with content that displays every type of bias and hate that you can imagine. Misinformation and propagandised disinformation, plus imagery that's often violent and or pornographic. It's generally just become objectionable, and I know Councillor Loudon will explore the statistics around that in a minute. That's why I no longer use the platform in any personal capacity, and I use it sparingly in my councillor capacity. I must say that unfortunately, I've noticed that the Facebook algorithm is pushing much of that same content on me over the last month, so I soon may have to reconsider my position there as well. I think it's right, as a council, we do not assist in making a platform that is filled with hate the digital town square, as Twitter used to like to call itself. When we instruct council staff to engage with the public online, we've got employers' duty of care to ensure that reasonable steps are taken to protect them from harm. Asking them to use Twitter, X, puts them at risk of that harm. Obviously, those risks have to be balanced with our other duties to the wider public, which is why I welcome the sensible caveats in the original motion allowing for tweets regarding real-time, urgent or emergency incidents. I support the motion in its current form, and I only seek to enhance it. One of Musk's most destructive acts was directing the removal of the verified blue check mark, so users knew which accounts could be trusted. Blue Sky is decentralised and doesn't issue blue ticks. It lets you verify yourself by connecting a known web domain. So Sky News is news.sky.com, Renfrewshire Council is renfrewshire.gov.uk, and I'm at cal.scot if you want to follow me. You're technologically prevented from setting your handle to a web domain that you don't control. And I won't explain that in further detail because I know it will take too long in this forum, and I don't think anyone here cares for the intricacies. We've already seen a very large North Lanarkshire Council page on Facebook that mocks our neighbouring authority and convinces many people that its satirical posts are genuinely North Lanarkshire Council. That's all good fun, but you can see how a bad actor could do the same for more nefarious purposes. As a local government body, we've got access to a .gov.uk domain name, so this amendment directs that we use that handle on Blue Sky so that members of the public know they can trust what we post there. And I ask that we do the same with subdomains for any other council accounts that get set up, such as roads.southlan or bothwellprimary.southlan, etc. And finally, as a personal offer to any member of any party in this chamber who might want to get off of X, I'm happy to sit down with you and show you around Blue Sky. I think you'll find it's fairly intuitive and refreshingly free of fascism. I move my amendment, thank you.
Thanks very much for that. I now ask Katie, would you like to make any comment being the seconder there?
Thanks very much, Deputy Provost. Thank you to Councillor McGeever and Councillor Ray for bringing this today. I also agree it's well considered, seeks to strike a sensible balance between information sharing, which we all know is so important, and supporting a particular platform. And as Carl said, our amendments just want to flesh out the section on growing engagement a wee bit. As many people have said, Twitter was never perfect, and it had long been criticised by some sections of the media for misinformation and toxicity. But as Councillor McGeever said, it was a known way to interact with trusted and verified sources of information. It was a key source for journalists. It played a central role in the rise of movements such as Me Too and Black Lives Matter. But when it became X, moderation staff were stripped out, accounts banned for hate speech were reinstated, and users' ability to report misinformation was removed. Organisations took stock of what was happening, and I want to take a minute for us to reflect on that rather than speak in more general terms. So the following information is from the Institute of Strategic Dialogue, the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, the Anti-Defamation League and the Science Feedback Fact-Checking Organisation about what had happened. The use of the N-word slur had tripled. Slurs against gay men had risen by 58%. Slurs against trans people had risen by 62%. Anti-Semitic tweets had doubled, and accounts pushing links to misinformation were receiving 44% more interaction. And just last week, the journal PLOS published analysis that said the spike in hate speech from October 22 was much higher than the increase in general activity on the platform. And this new pay-for-feature blue tick system has completely broken online communities, and it can actively push this content into timelines, which is the problem. If the Council continues to encourage non-urgent engagement on X, what we're doing is encouraging exposure to advertising as well, which actually bankrolls the very platform which allows this material on its site. And finally, Deputy Provost, I'd like to mention schools. Because if we are going to agree today to minimise the risk of council content appearing alongside hate speech, I'm concerned that schools, good news stories, pictures of pupils on X and so on, are tacitly encouraging young people to pop on and have a look at the post, have a look at their photograph. This, of course, is especially concerning when we're talking about younger pupils who are still developing their information literacy skills and are at more risk from mis- and disinformation. I understand we're primarily talking about the main council account today, but I hope the mover and seconder would also agree that this needs a wee bit of further thought. At the very least, if we're to make this decision today, it needs to be communicated to schools in a way that explains why, so that school communities can have that wider conversation. And I would welcome this being picked up, perhaps at Education Committee, for an update at a future date. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Katie. A couple of people want to come in. Councillor Lambie's first. Go ahead there, Ross.
Thanks, Deputy Chair. I must be in the wrong room today. I thought this was the council chamber where we discuss important business, to be honest. I mean, we all go to community council meetings across the whole of South Lanarkshire. We discuss the worries of our constituents, about the state of the roads, about education standards dropping, the idea that council tax might be going up. And that's what they expect us all to be in here discussing. This room's not free. We've got the whole senior management of the council in here, all 64 councillors. It's costing taxpayers money to sit here and discuss this. The council leaving X will make no difference to X whatsoever. The only result will be the 60,000 people that use that service won't have any information from the council through that channel. So it's just schoolyards politics, and you should be ashamed.
Thank you. A couple of other people wanting in. Can just ask, obviously, if we try to make it as brief as possible. Councillor Allison, I think, is next there. Alec.
Thanks, Deputy Provost. As someone who's never used Twitter or X, but I am now managing to use a mobile phone, I'm maybe not the ideal person to speak about this. But there are 59,000 people who do use it. Many of them, if not most of them, will be in South Lanarkshire. Whether you like that site or not, these 59,000 people do have a view. If moderate commentators such as our council withdraw from that site, you're leaving it to the extremists. There will be no mitigation for what they say, and that will make everything worse. Yes, there are other like blue sky that can be used, but that does not mean to say that we shouldn't be using this and trying to engage with these 59,000 people who are on there. It is far, far better to engage with those you disagree with than simply post where you've got like-minded people. That does not take anything any further forward in the community. And I would therefore move a motion that both these, the paper and the amendment, are refused.
Thanks very much, Alec. I'll take another couple of people here, if you don't mind. A couple of people trying to get in there. David Watson, you're next there. David, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Deputy Provost. This is total political posture. When I look at what's been said and where it's coming from, it's a case of don't do as I do, but do as I say. And I have my own views on X as it stands, and I do use it, but I do have views on it. But it's not for my place to push these views down MD's throat. Individuals may choose to withdraw from X, although there are a number of councillors in this room still on X. I've looked at every political party in this room is on X at a national level. So surely if you were going to withdraw, that's where you start, and show some leadership from your political parties and from your individual actions. I wonder how many councillors in this room will continue to use X along with their political parties as they seek to fight future elections. I would bet quite a few. It's total hypocrisy to say we will not pass on information to the 59,200 individual followers that we've got on the council's X site. But hey-ho, when we choose to and we think something's important, we'll stick it on it. You know, so you either don't use it or you use it. I think it's a bit hypocritical to think you can use it just when it suits. Surely it's the job of the council's comms team to find the best way to circulate information to everyone in our community. I'll give you some figures. Glasgow City Council, big neighbour next door, has got 943 followers on Blue Sky. On X, they've got 218,000. South Lanarkshire's got 178 followers in Blue Sky. On X, we've got 59,200. The motion also says that actions on X are unlawful. Surprised then that Police Scotland use X. It says that some of the stuff put out on X is false. Have you actually seen some of the stuff that gets put out by political parties? Of everybody in this room. So, on that basis, Chair, I think let's step back from this. Let our comms team do their job. Find the best way. Let them put the message out that we need put out. whether it's an emergency, whether it's about school enrolment, whether it's about anything else. That's their job, not ours to start censoring. Thanks, Chair.
Right, thanks very much. Before we move on, I'd ask Councillor Allison, you got a seconder there? Right, thank you. I could ask Mike, she's patiently waiting to go. Mike, get my echo there.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I just wanted to say that I do welcome the motion, but the thing that I think that we need to be really clear on is when we've recently been in meetings and it was to do with the local development plan for BSL users, what came out of that was that, see, for the youngsters up to middle age, that was where they got the majority of the information that the council was putting out. So I think that I welcome the motion, but I think that we do need to be steadfast when we're building up on other platforms, that they are the platforms that are basically the people in our community are actually using, and not one that's a tick box for us, because for people that need to get the information, and that is the place that they go to get it, whether it's Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, whatever. People need to be able to access our information, and our website obviously as well is one that they'll go to, but it's not clear. So before, as I say, I do welcome the motion, but we need to make sure that before we stop doing things on one platform, we need to make sure that we are fully engaging with other people, with the same people on the other platforms. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. I think the last two people, and we'll go to the vote here, we've spent a lot of time on this, and a lot of comments and observations have been met and listened to. So, Mark first, and then Katie. Mark.
Thanks very much, Deputy Provost, and I'll forgo any attempt to sum up as a result of you letting me come back in there, so thanks. Just to address some of the concerns, I think Monique put forward a very useful one, and also David and Alex's thoughtful contributions. I would like to reassure members that the purpose of this is, and it's been done in a deliberate way, is that it will allow the communications team to use their expert judgment to continue to use it where it's appropriate, and basically to make a judgment about where the public interest of using it outweighs any potential harm of doing so as well. And that's a professional judgment that they are more than capable of making, and we would absolutely trust to them. It's not in any way hypocritical for a council or other organisations, and other organisations like those mentioned, whether it's political parties or emergency services or health boards and many others, will now actively be considering exactly this sort of content or motion that we're putting forward today. And changes will very rapidly come, I would predict, in how they engage with Twitter or X going forward. And finally, I just want to say that it's not in any way hypocritical to say that you feel obliged to use something because there is a public need to do so, a public interest need to do so. However, you're not going to use it trivially, that you recognise that there are consequences to your doing so, and that these consequences will be considered when we do use that platform going forward, and that ultimately, unless things change, that we would like to get to a point where we no longer have to use that platform, but we recognise it's not today. So really that's the intent behind it, and I hope that addresses some of the concerns that have been thoughtfully put forward by colleagues. And with that, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. Last speaker, Katie, it's you. Going to go, please.
Thanks very much, Deputy Provost, for letting me come back in. I've got to say it's a wee bit hard to counterpoints from someone who doesn't use X, because frankly it's a bit embarrassing to confidently talk about something you don't use and try to lecture the rest of us on it. I want to pick up this 59,000 figure that's been thrown around in terms of followers. If you look at the last couple of posts, as we've now to call them, on the Council X account, we've got 7 likes, 6 likes, no likes, very little interaction. One post is seen by 1,400 people, no interaction. That 1,400 includes scrolls, it's not clicks, it's not engagement. Social media companies deliberately show that figure, meaning it's just popped up in somebody's timeline. They might have had eyes on it for half a second. So I don't think we can make that argument that it's this great source of information for people, beyond what the mover and the seconder have already said about putting urgent stuff on. Just to reiterate the point that I made about the kind of material that is appearing on there, I popped on the other day when I was thinking about what I was going to say. One scroll, like one movement of my finger, showed me a tweet from an account which I do not follow, which has got over 11 million followers, which was praising a T-shirt which has been sold by an American rapper with a swastika on it, and multiple racist posts about Serena Williams. That is what is being pushed on X into timelines by accounts which people do not follow. That is what we're talking about when we're talking about risk in terms of what's appearing around council content, and that's what the mover and the seconder were talking about too in that context. I have an X account. I'm not using it. I'm holding the account name. Yes, other organisations and other individuals need to reflect on their use, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking specifically about the council. And as for Blue Sky and the lack of followers on there just now, the council haven't told anyone about Blue Sky. If you go into the council X account and search for Blue Sky, we have not told anyone that account exists. That's something we can change pretty easily. Thanks, Provost.
Okay, thank you, Katie. I'd like now probably move to the vote and then the time probably for a break. So I'll go over to Susan, please, who'll explain the vote in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. The motion before you is proposed by Councillors McGeever and Brown, and that's contained in page 37 of your papers. But they've also agreed to accept the amendment as circulated by Councillor Johnson-Dempsey and by Councillor Loudon. The amendment is proposed by Councillor Allison and seconded by Councillor Nelson, and they are proposing to reject it. The vote will be simple, a for or against, so you're voting either for the motion or against as proposed by Councillors Allison and Nelson. So with that, I'll just open up the votes. For or against. We're still waiting on 2 people to cast their votes. And there's still 1 member. Oh, that's the votes in. I'll stop the voting just now. There was 54 voted for the motion and 9 was against it. The motion is therefore declared carried. At this point, before we move on to item 7, we also had declarations of interest from Councillors Nelson, Keat and Devlin. So I would ask if they could leave the meeting.
Thanks for that. The people have already left the room, so we'll go on to item 7, Touch of Life, Make a Difference Initiative update, pages 39 to 42, and I'm going to ask Ian to speak to that, please.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Provost. So the purpose of the report is to seek approval for 6 local beneficiaries, which will share with the 2 previously approved primary beneficiaries the donations generated by the Touch of Life Make a Difference fundraising in 2025. An update on the work of the initiative and funds raised for Kilbride Hospice was reported to Council back in November. Members will be aware Council agreed that Scent Scotland and Guide Dogs for the Blind would be the primary beneficiaries this year, and it was agreed that before further local beneficiaries would be chosen to share in the donations generated by the initiative, a report to come back to this meeting in connection with that and how the fundraising would be shared. What the report is proposing is that Council approves 6 further local beneficiaries, not 4. If the Council was minded to agree to that, then under Standing Order 19, I think the Deputy Provost need to rule that had been a material change of circumstances, which I think he is content with. As members will know, we got nominations from you across party group of members met and considered those. They agreed that all 6 nominated beneficiaries were equally deserving and should be recommended to the Council, being those listed at 4.2. Given the additional local beneficiaries now being recommended, it's proposed that the sharing of the fundraising isn't fixed until there's a better sense of how much might be raised and how it might be best apportioned. So as such, proposing that a decision on that is delegated to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Provost and the group leaders. Also reporting there that the Burren Supper that was held in the banqueting hall earlier this month raised £20,000 for the initiative. So just going back to the recommendations, asking that this update is noted, that the 6 local beneficiaries listed are agreed as further local beneficiaries for the initiative in 2025, that a decision for the sharing of donations is delegated to the Executive in consultation with the Provost and group leaders, and to note that an annual update on the work will be submitted to the December meeting of the Council. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Ian. I'd just like to say, yes, I agree with the material change, and I'd ask members to agree with the report. Are we agreed? Right. Sorry, Councillor Marr, you want to make a comment there?
I'd hoped that actually you'd taken my comment before you agreed the report. I'm sorry, I didn't notice that it was the Haven and Forth that was noted in this report. I would declare an interest if I'm still able to do so. I had thought it was the Haven and Blantyre. If I could declare an interest to leave the meeting now while you continue the item, please.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd second that. Fine then, Julie. We'll see you in a minute or two, hopefully. Okay, can I ask again, the members agree with the report? Thank you. Thanks, sir. Right, I believe we maybe have our 5-minute break here. Once we'll break the other people back in, then we'll go to a break. Okay, we'll invite them in first. Okay, that's order, please. That is resuming the meeting. Number 8, item 8. This is Boundaries Scotland, additional proposal for constituencies, revised proposals for regions of the South Parliament, pages at 43 to 46. And I believe we have an amendment in this one as well. Right, in fact, Ian, if you'd like to speak there, please.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Yep, the purpose of the report provide an update on Boundary Scotland's additional proposals for constituencies and revised proposals for regions for the Scottish Parliament. As members will be aware, Boundary Scotland's undertaken 3 rounds of consultation previously on proposals. It's produced additional proposals for consultation, but nothing in respect of affecting South Lanarkshire Council area constituency. And effectively, they would be proposing to adopt as final recommendations where they hadn't previously made any changes. Boundary Scotland have also published revised proposals for regions. I've included in 4.4 there provisional proposals set out there, which include a reference to South Lanarkshire Council. It's a statutory 1-month period for consultation, which closes on the 24th of February. And the recommendations today is that the consultation is noted. We already are displaying the proposals on the website and the council offices, noting the consultation period and how comments can be made to the consultation. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. I believe amendment coming forward, so I'd ask the Council Leader Joe Fagan to speak, please.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. An amendment has been circulated, and I should say a slightly better formatted version of it has also been circulated to the group leaders earlier today. And I should also just say, in the interest of transparency, I have considered whether it was appropriate to make a declaration of interest here, and the advice I have is that it is not, or it is not required. So, the paper is for noting. We receive a number of these papers. I've never been moved to push a position to the council or put a position to the council on these before. In this instance, I am, because I think it's a rare example of, as the boundary process moves from one set of proposals to the next, that the proposals in relation to South Lanarkshire and specifically in relation to East Kilbride have gotten worse. I'll not go through an extensive list of reasons, but if I could just say the Boundary Commission, or Boundary Scotland as they now call themselves, originally grouped constituencies across Glasgow, Renfrewshire, East Renfrewshire and Inverclyde together for the purpose of developing their proposals. The inclusion of East Kilbride in the Glasgow region at a very late stage in the process is contrary to that approach. There's 2 miles of green belt between the Glasgow region and East Kilbride, while the border of Glasgow and a number of its other suburbs in that original grouping is indistinguishable. The main public services that serve East Kilbride share an administrative geography with other parts of Lanarkshire, not with Glasgow, and there has been a long-standing link between East Kilbride and the rest of Lanarkshire when it comes to parliamentary regions since the creation of the Scottish Parliament. I won't go through all the reasons, because I actually think there is probably near universal agreement that this is a bad proposal for East Kilbride. I accept that the follow-on from that is, if not that proposal, then what is your alternative, which then has knock-on effects in relation to other regions. And that's why the amendment that I'm proposing asks that the Council make an objection to the revised proposals for regional boundaries pertaining to South Lanarkshire on the basis that East Kilbride should not be part of the Glasgow region. But then, rather than ask the Council to agree any counter-proposal here today, I'm suggesting that if the Council wished to make a counter-proposal, we allow officials to undertake an urgent consultation with group leaders and to see if we can reach some sort of position before this impending deadline of next week. The real benefit, I think, in the local authority issuing an objection is that it would, I believe, initiate some sort of local inquiry session. We have seen that happen in Paisley, we've seen that happen in Bathgate. It hasn't happened here in relation to South Lanarkshire, and that would allow the various political parties and community organisations and anyone else who might wishes to make a representation, perhaps dealing with that second point. If you don't agree with this, then what do you agree with, to make it as part of an inquiry session. So I'm hoping that what I've put forward makes the case that ultimately I want the best outcome for South Lanarkshire and for East Kilbride. But I'm also, by lodging a formal objection as a council, we open the space in which that wider conversation about what alternatives might be can take place. I suspect away from the council chamber, where it might be harder to get agreement on that level of detail. But thanks, Provost. That's Deputy Provost. That's the purpose in the amendment.
Okay, thanks very much, Joe. Before we go to the vote or the amendment here, I'd like to, if people want to speak, I'd ask if we can keep it as brief as possible. But of course, we're willing to listen to you there. Councillor Johnson Dempsey's first there. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Provost. I agree with Councillor Fagan. It makes more sense for East Kilbride to be part of the Central Scotland region as opposed to the Glasgow region. Coming back to those sort of consequentials, if it meant that Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse had to move into South Scotland as one of Boundary Scotland's previous iterations of its proposals suggested, I think that would be a worse pairing. So agree, it's very much down to the detail of how everything laid out, but yes, this amendment makes sense, and I agree with it.
Thank you. Ask Councillor Condry. Go ahead, Jerry.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, Deputy Provost, I'll formally second the amendment.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I'll pass over to Susan now. Council minded to agree with this? Oh, sorry. David Watson, man. Go ahead, David.
Thanks, Deputy Provost. I think this might not seem important, but I think it is very important. I think when you look at, we're talking East Kilbride here, and East Kilbride's links in with Lanarkshire Health Board, not Greater Glasgow Health Board, is probably quite a big one from a point of view of an MSP. But also, I think you need to recognise that part of East Kilbride because of the growth, falls into Clydesdale. And we could have the ludicrous situation where East Kilbride is split between two different regions in the Scottish Parliament. And to me, that's a total crazy situation. So I think I look forward to seeing what comes forward, and hopefully we can get some unanimity across the council on it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, David. Could I now ask our members minded to agree, taking into mind Councillor Fagan's amendment there?
Agreed, Chair.
Right, thank you. Thanks. Right, moving on now to item number 9, South Lanarkshire Council Armed Forces Community Covenant Strategy Annual Update, pages 47 to 68. And I'm going to ask Ian to speak on this. Is that correct, Ian?
Thank you, Deputy Provost. The purpose of the report providing an update on the work the Council has undertaken in progressing delivery of South Lanarkshire Council's Armed Forces Community Covenant Strategy. Members may recall that at the executive meeting on 26th of June, the committee approved this strategy and associated action plan, and it noted that we'd provide an update on this in early 25. In the period since the strategy was adopted, we have a cross-service officer group that have been taking forward delivery of it and the action plan, and there's 5 work streams as set out there in 4.2. We've included an update on the action plan, including recent and planned activity in Appendix 1 to the report, which is hopefully of assistance. That work will continue, provide another further update last year. I've also consulted with Councillor Horsham, the Council's Armed Forces champion, in respect of this report, given his remit. The recommendations asking Council to note the update on the work that the Council has undertaken in progressing delivery of this strategy, and that a further update will be provided in March 26. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Ian. A couple there. First of all, I think Mark is your position as a spokesman. Would you like to say a few words? And then we've got Richard. So, Mark, on you go.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. This report details our commitment to our Armed Forces community through the Armed Forces Covenant here in South Lanarkshire, a pledge that no member of the Armed Forces community faces disadvantage due to their service. South Lanarkshire Council plays a critical role in supporting our current serving men and women, veterans and their families. Whether living in or transitioning to the local authority, we need to provide support where needed to those in our Armed Forces community. This strategy is the most in-depth that South Lanarkshire Council has seen for our Armed Forces community and details what we have achieved and the plans going forward. We will continue to review this strategy not only internally but also with our external partners from the Lanarkshire Armed Forces Community and Veterans Covenant Group, formerly known as Lanarkshire Firm Base, to make sure our Armed Forces community have the support needed. I would like to finish by saying thank you to the officers for their work on this, also our partners, all elected members and our communities for their ongoing support for making sure that our commitment to the Armed Forces community continues. Thank you.
Thank you. Very kind words there. I think, Richard, do you want to come in there?
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Firstly, can I just extend my gratitude to those involved in shaping this annual strategy update. I think it is vital in ensuring that our veterans receive the care and assistance that they deserve. As someone who is deeply committed to supporting our veterans and for those veterans who interact with justice services and unpaid work, I think it is encouraging to see the continued commitment to veterans' welfare within this strategy. I must concern, though, some concerns regarding the level of focus on unpaid work and veterans as a specific action within this update. We know that some of our forgotten veterans find themselves within the justice system due to circumstances sometimes beyond their control. This is where services like the About Turn project at Auchentibber play a crucial role and offer not just a second chance, but a structured and supportive pathway back into society. The About Turn project is a shining example of what can be achieved when we invest in the right kind of support, teaching veterans basic life skills such as cooking, budgeting and social interaction, not just about rehabilitation, it's about empowerment. I have personally witnessed the incredible impact that this initiative has got on our unforgotten veterans, equipping them with the skills and confidence they need to rebuild their lives. I want to take this opportunity here now to extend my heartfelt thanks to the dedicated staff at Auchentibber's unpaid work programme. Their commitment, compassion have made a tangible difference in the lives of those who have served our country and now find themselves in need of some support. Their work embodies the very essence of what it means to honour and assist those who have sacrificed so much. However, while we celebrate these successes, we must push forward, and I urge that justice and unpaid work are given more a central role within this strategy going forward in the future. By embedding these initiatives that are run by this Council more deeply into those plans, we can ensure that no veteran is left behind, and we must continue to build on what we have achieved with those people at Auchentibber to ensure that our veterans receive the recognition, respect and tailored support that they deserve. Once again, I want to thank everybody involved in this crucial work, but to continue to work together to support our veterans, ultimately in that unpaid justice, and ensure that they have the opportunity to reintegrate successfully into our society. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Richard. Being a former spokesman for the veterans, I appreciate understanding the hard work and how important to all of us they are. So thank you. Right, I think that's any urgent business, of which I have none. So I'd just like to... Oh, sorry. Sorry. First of all, if you ask that, note that report there. Is it noted? Thank you. Sorry about that. Any urgent business? Well, none as such. So I'd just like to thank you for your attendance and this morning. And I hope that Miriam there, I hope you enjoyed them this morning with us. I'm sure you'll have enjoyable ones. Right, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good morning. Have a good day. Okay, Paul.